Can you ask Luca to test the channels?
Yeah.
Everything is all right.
Okay, we are live.
Okay. Can you check the channels?
Yeah, it's working, everything.
Okay.
I'm seeing people are starting to react, so I think we are good to go. Yeah.
Whenever you feel like, Luca, you can start.
Cool. So hello, everyone. We're here today with world famous live looping artist Fx, and who I'm sure you all know by now, and Josep Garces, the brain behind LiveLoop, the live looping software. Ben, Josep, is really great to have you both in this talk. Thank you for joining.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us, guys. Thanks for having me.
That's great. Before we start, I would like to say to everyone looking at us right now that you can send us questions in the chat via Facebook or Twitch, and we will try to answer some of them depending on time, but we'll have a look at them. Ben, Josep, these are very interesting times to be discussing the live looping technique, not only as it's growing in popularity, but also reflecting on the current times we are living with restricted mobility and musicians not being able to perform together as they used to. And I hope we can share some thoughts on this later. But to begin, I would like to go a bit back in time. Ben, you started as a street musician with nothing more than your voice and a loop station. How and why did you get into live looping?
So I was playing in lots of different bands in Australia and lots of different genres of music as well. So I was in a heavy metal band. I was in a hip hop soul kind of band. I was doing reggae with a reggae band. I was jamming with jazz musicians. I was also singing over DJs, like in clubs over house and techno and that sort of stuff. And the thing that I had the whole time wasn't a loop station, but it was the effects pedal over my voice. So I was always running my microphone into a guitar effects pedal, which is actually the heart and soul of my sound as Dub FX. You could give me any loop station, but as long as I keep that effects pedal, that's where I get my sound from. Yeah. So I was using this. I basically learned how to control my voice with the effects in all these different bands, just being a singer. Just sometimes I wasn't even the front man. I was just, you know, the backing singer, rapper guy sort of thing. And eventually, after doing that for about 3 or 4 years, and I was playing loads of different gigs all over the place in Melbourne, I saw this one guy called Mal Webb, who's an Australian looper. He's the first guy I ever saw using a loop station. And he's more of a crazy scientist than a sort of art, like he's an artist, but more of like, he doesn't make music like I make music for clubs and things like that. He makes more just crazy scientific experiments. He's kind of like Aphex Twin kind of vibe. And but all with a loop station and a microphone and no effects, just the microphone and the loop station. And he's an incredible singer. He can do all that weird sort of monk chanty kind of all that kind of stuff. He can beatbox like a god. And he's got this super high-pitched voice, and he can go really low as well. So he can do all this amazing stuff. And I remember just watching him and being so captivated by his performance because of how transparent it was. You could see him in front of you, and it was a small venue, this like with a small PA, and you could hear him make the sound coming out, and it would loop back, and I was just like blown. My mind was blown, and I thought, wow, if I could use, because I was already using bass lines in bands, like sometimes in the jazz band when the bass player would take a break, I would sing bass lines and do the bass for it. So I was already doing that kind of stuff and pitching my voice, and I was always beatboxing it for my friends at school. I used to beatbox for my friends who wanted to freestyle at lunchtime in high school. I was never that good at it, but it was just something that I liked doing. So I was like, when I saw the loop station, I was like, I could do all of these things that I'm already doing and put them together in a loop station. I've never seen anyone do that before. So I immediately bought a loop station. That was 2005. It was, and I had the Akai head rush pedal. So that's why I pretty much got into it. And then what I did from there was I moved to Europe in 2006, and I just started street performing with the loop station and the effects pedal. And I didn't know what I was doing at first, but over the course of the first year, I started to figure out what I was doing and how to do what I wanted to do. And then by 2008, 2009, that's when those videos, Love Someone and Flow, came out, which went super viral. And that was about 3 years into it. I'd already figured out my sound. I understood what dub FX was. And yeah, that's pretty much how it happened.
Wow, great story. And I think actually, Giuseppe, it would be interesting to make the comparison here, because I think your story is actually inspired by Ben. So can you tell us a bit about that?
My story is very similar than yours, but you were the one who opened my eyes, actually. With this video you played on the street with Mr. Bootnote. And at that time, I was a sax player, and I was a classical saxophone player. And a friend of mine, I was actually traveling in Bucharest, and a friend of mine sent me this video of yours that it was actually booming YouTube. And I saw like how one person could just make the bass lines, and make all the harmonies and all the effects with the voice, and then with the solo of Mr. Bootnote, you could like raise the energy or lower the energy. So I was amazed how one person could make all these layers and all this performance, and also how the direction could be taken for an improvisation, because Mr. Bootnote was improvising, and I think the solo of that video is incredible. It's amazing, and it's amazing also how you merge it together. So this is how I started. This is how I first saw about live looping, that was possible. So in that point, I watched that video like 100,000 times, let's see.
That was you that did all those views.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, I want to do this. But at that time I was in Spain. I didn't have the budget for a loop station, so I had to wait a little bit. But this video really turned me on into the live looping technique, and I understood that this was something that I really want to do very seriously and professionally.
Yeah, cool.
And Ben, would you say that this technique changed your way of making music?
Definitely. It's something that the thing about looping for me, it's always been a live thing. I don't use the techniques that I do when I perform live in the studio, because the thing about looping is it's a very live thing. It's if I was to record a song with a loop station and then just send someone the audio and they didn't know that it was me looping it all, it wouldn't matter to them that I was looping it all. They just want to know that it sounds good and that it's something that they want to listen to. And the thing about beatboxing specifically is that beatboxing is a very visual thing as well. So both the beatboxing and the looping are extremely, you need to see it in order to understand. Like if you watch a guy in a club beatboxing and you're seeing this one man with a mic on his lips and all this sound coming out of his face, and it sounds like a full band. It doesn't sound exactly like a full band, but it sounds close enough. So and because it's all coming out of this one guy and of this big sound system, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. But if you were to get him to record that and put it onto a CD, it's close enough, but it's not good enough compared to what you would get from a real band playing, right? Because so there's this weird dichotomy going on where it works amazing for live beatboxing, but recorded, you have to know that it's someone beatboxing for it to be impressive. Otherwise, it just sounds like music that's not quite as well produced. You know what I mean? So there's this, it's funny, I have to, when I do my beatbox songs, I make sure that you hear the imperfections and the things that don't make it sound perfect so that you understand that it is me beatboxing. I have to put in the mistakes, like the the things that make it not sound clean. And so there's this crazy, that's why my albums, I don't do much beatboxing on my albums, because I think first and foremost, the most important thing about music is the song. It's not about how you make the song. It's not about the instruments that you use. It's not about the way it was produced. It's about the song. Does the song move you? Is it a song that, you know, can the song be played on the piano with just piano and voice, or just guitar and voice, and be just as good? That for me is the quest. I don't care. The looping and the beatboxing, that's just something that I do live because it impresses people. And also, it was something that stopped people in the street. Yes, it impressed them, but it meant I didn't have to bring a band with me. I could just do it all by myself. And that was the fun thing. So what I would do is I would take these songs that I actually originally wrote for bands, and then I would just do it however I needed to do in the moment with a loop station, just to get the song out there. And of course, people would go, oh my God, he's doing it all by himself, and he's using this technology I've never seen before, and oh my God. But the reason why I still perform today, and the reason why people still book me, I believe, is because of the songs. It's not, if there are plenty of guys out there who can beatbox and who are technically better than me, they can beatbox better than me, they can sing better than me, they can rap better than me, but they don't have songs the way I have songs. They might just, you know, like for example, Beardy Man is a great example. I love Beardy Man. He's one of my favorite people. He's an incredible musician, beatboxer, but he doesn't have songs that people can go, oh, I love that Beardy Man song. He does crazy things where you can go, I've seen him live a bunch of times, and every time I'm blown away, and he's exactly what I'm talking about. He's a live act, but you have to see it and you have to hear it, have to see it to basically really be completely 100% involved with the performance. So I have this weird love-hate relationship with looping and beatboxing, because it's something that I use live and I love doing it live, but in the studio, I don't do it like that. I just make a song, the best version of that song it can be. And if it involves beatboxing, great. If it doesn't involve beatboxing, then I won't use it. You know what I mean? Same with the live looping.
And did your setup change over the years? Your live setup?
My live setup has changed a lot, because on the beginning, I was using an Akai head rush pedal and a GT6 FX pedal. That was the first FX pedal that I had. And then I had that for the first year, and then I came home and then I upgraded to the RC50 loop station by Boss, and the GT8 also came out that same year, which was the GT6. It was an upgrade from the GT6 basically to the GT8. And that was my setup from 2007 to 2009 to 2009. So I had that for about 2 or 3 years. And then in the end of 2009 is when the GT10B came out, which is the effects pedal that I use now. And that's a bass version. So it's much better for, I can basically make like infinite amounts of bass line sounds with the GT10B. And I also upgraded to the RC505 loop station in 2000, I don't remember, 13 or 13 was when it came out. And I upgraded to that. And then on top of that, because my live show, it gets boring if you see someone make a beat, loop it, make a bass line, loop it, do some harmonies, loop it, and sing a song over the top. If you see someone do that over and over again for an hour, it does get boring. It's great for like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. But I can't, you get to the point where it's like, and I'm not an amazing beatboxer. I can just make a kick, a snare, and a hi-hat, which is and so there's only a certain amount of combinations between or eventually I'm just repeating myself. So what I do now is I also use drum machines and loops that I've also created, and it's usually stems from my live albums. So stuff that I've recorded in a studio, I put it in a drum machine and I trigger that. And sometimes I'll use the beatboxing, but I'll have a melody or some chords, because it's really tiring to make chords when you're using a loop station over and over again. It's great to do it once or twice and people go, wow, you made those chords. But after a while, it's like, because you got to do sometimes do really long chord progressions, takes a really long time. And if you mess one note up, then the whole thing sounds like shit. So you got to be really, I just do little things. I kind of figured out ways to make it sound like there's chords without having to actually record the chords, which I'll do for you guys later on. I'll show you what I mean. But yeah, so my setups, it's always changing. I always work with musicians, because like I was working with Mr. Woodnote for that song Flow. But I've always worked with musicians because I feel that this music is not, as much as I love being a solo artist and being able to do everything the way I want it to be at all times, I also like having artists that I can bounce off. So I'm always working with different artists, whether it's bass players, keys players, trumpet players, saxophone players, guitarists, other vocalists. That's probably the funnest one to work with, because I can just concentrate on making the music and they can just go off on one and basically do what they do. So yeah, I've got that's my setup. I don't know, I just went on a tangent then.
That's cool. Well, I think it's interesting to look at, the fact that you use a lot of, basically the main setup is it's hardware, and then to move to Giuseppe, which you released LiveLoop in 2019, which is a software for live looping. And I would be interested to know what's your approach actually to live looping, and what's the difference actually from hardware to software? How did you get into building a software for this?
Yeah, so first I want to make a reference of what Ben just said about looping and getting boring, yes? Because if you have the same structure of making a bass line, making harmonies, and all in the same loop and just making layers, at some point it gets boring. So I wanted to break this barrier, and I wanted to be able to be more flexible and more creative in the way I can perform live. So what I thought of LiveLoop, I first started recording live looping with a Boss pedal, which it had three channels, and so for me it was like a very heavy piece of gear for only 3 channels. And also I realized that for each channel they were using 2 different buttons. So I started after few years looping with the Boss pedal, I started counting my limitation. Also in terms of time signatures limitation. Like most of the music is done in 4/4, and I wanted to break that option. I mean, of course, with LiveLoop you can also play 4/4, but I wanted to. I composed this song that it was in 29/8. That the rhythm does like this: taketi mi taketi taketi mi taketi taketi mi taketi taketi mi taketi mi ta. So it was a 29/8 loop, and I wanted to be able to loop that and synchronize it with my hardware, and that was not possible. They wouldn't recognize it. So this was one of my first turning points. And another turning point was I wanted to have separate channels, like each one would be different, and it would be like I could set up in a live performance if channel 2, channel 3 would be in sync, and channel 4 it wouldn't be in sync, or channel 3 is gonna be 5 beats and it's gonna be synchronized with another channel, it's gonna be 7 beats. So I really wanted to see to have all the possibilities that you can make in a live performance of recording music and playback.
And why would someone go from switch from hardware to software?
Because hardware weighs way too much. It's too heavy to carry around. I think you just said that, but that's why I want to switch. Basically, I'm just got to figure out the right controllers. Really, that's what it all comes down to.
Yeah, that was also for me. I mean, before I started the software, I had like the hardware, then I had the pedals, and I have everything. Now I have everything in one software, and then I have the plugins that I made myself into the plugins, and it's much easier. Now I have a backpack and a carry bag, and I can go to my gig. Before I needed a bag, and I need a car, and I need somebody to help me carrying it. So this is a big turning point.
I mean, the thing is, the thing about hardware is hardware also has software inside it. It's just it's just designed to do a specific thing. The only problem with that is you're sort of at the mercy of the limitations of what that product was designed to do. So, you know, in Joseph's case with this live loop, it's so modular that you can pretty much tweak it to do whatever it is you want. You could even build your own controller to go with it so that it does exactly what you want to do. That's what I'm planning on doing. You know, my plan is to eventually find someone that can build a controller that does has all the buttons in the spots that needs to, so that I can then map it to a program like, you know, or like to live loop basically, and not a program, live loop, and then basically control it that way. You know what I mean? You know, it's just a matter of getting that. You know what I mean? Getting that working.
Yeah. And what would you say, Giuseppe, that live loop adds in terms of creativity to what is known to live looping until now? What is possible to do with it?
So one of my favorite things that when people talks about looping, and I mentioned before, it talks about they make a bar loop or and then they make loops on it. But my concept of looping, besides that, is also about making different loops of different lengths, and how, because they are different lengths, how the relationship is between them. So it can be like, if they can be free loops, and they also the relationship of the free loops are different than the relationship of the bit quantized loops. So as I mentioned before, like I can have a loop that is 5 bits, another 3 bits, and how it quantized, and that's I think it brings something new in the looping technique as well, and into the music as well, how we perceive music.
Would you like to
techno with that sort of stuff? Techno is so syncopated with so many different time signatures all over the spot, you know, like it'd be good for that kind of electronic music, I think, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of stuff I like to do. I like to fusion like classical, contemporary jazz music with techno, and yeah.
Cool.
Would you like to show us a bit how this function works, or
actually, I would like to show this function of the bit quantize. Let me put my setup here. Just
yeah, it's not only getting the right controller, but I also want to try and get my effects to be much lighter as well. Because like I said, the GT10B, I'll show you the GT10B is this thing here, right? So that's the heart of my sound, but it weighs like 5 kilograms. And then then it sits on top of a bunch of other pedals, and then all the leads and all the cables. I would love to have just a much smaller, even if it was just something like sort of this big, you know what I mean? Something which is, you can't really tell on the screen, but this is much smaller and much lighter. Just a little thing that I could have with my hands that has the same functionality. But so the effects pedal for me is really hard, but that's something that's a whole other kettle of fish. You know, designing a loop station is one thing. Designing good effects is a really, really difficult thing. But nowadays, with all the what's it called, impulse response technology that's out there, you can recreate all kinds of amazing effects, basically. So I'm actually looking at creating impulse responses for all my effects sounds in the GT10B, so that I could put them in a little iPad app, and then boom, I've got them there. That's one idea.
Oh, okay. Giuseppe, you're ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. So the bit function I want to show is just like that. Can you hear now? this is a loop that is in 5, and then the 5 beats. Then I'm gonna make another. It's gonna be 3 beats. It's playing now. No, only you cannot hear it. Sorry, the sound of the streaming is different than what is coming out here, so that's why you cannot hear it. Yeah, they can hear it. Sorry for that. So this is a loop that is 5 beats, another is 3 beats, and I'm gonna make another is gonna be 7 beats. Can make polyrhythms with that. So this is one of my favorite features on LiveLoop. With a bit quantized one.
Nice. And you were saying also, Ben, earlier that you would like to show us your setup. And I'm sure everyone watching now also agrees that your sound is a very particular signature we all recognize.
Uh-huh. You want me to do some stuff?
If you want to, that would be great.
Hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, yes.
Yeah, sweet, no worries. Let me put some party lights on. Hold on, let me get my party lights. Can you see my party lights?
Yes. Beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah, the internet's being a bit strange. I'm just waiting for 5G to come so it can kill us all, but we'll have really fast. All right, hold on. So do something like this. So as you can see, I like making really, really short beatbox loops because I'm not that good at beatboxing. So as long as I've got one kick, one hi-hat, and one snare, like I said before, that's all this is. That's one kick, one hat. And that's what actually makes it sound fatter and punchier is because it's just one. Oh, let me turn a light on so you can see me more. Hold on. Here we go. There we go. So yeah, so that's why it sounds really fat because it's literally just a one kick, one snare sample looping. So I like doing that, and then I'll do some extra stuff. I like music that moves you, music that grooves you. Close your eyes, I wanna lose you. Here is a message, it won't confuse you. Open your heart now and let it choose you. The music that moves you, music that grooves you. Close your eyes, I wanna lose you. Here is a message, it won't confuse you. Open your heart now and let it choose you. The music that moves you, music that grooves you. Close your eyes, I wanna lose you. Here is a message, it won't confuse you. Open your heart now, let it lose you. The music that moves you, music that grooves you. Close your eyes, I wanna lose you. Here is a message, it won't confuse you. Open your heart.
Hey yo, take it to another level, we'll be getting louder. Freedom to express, now my people getting prouder.
Picking the flower, going tall like a tower.
Counting down the hour till it all goes sour.
Spreading hope like a disease of lies.
Miscommunicating, stimulating your eyes.
Improvise, that's the only way to see your rise. Never forget, know when time's up, say goodbye.
Oh no, here I go, jamming to the rhythm. Rider on loops, I create while singing.
I'm fun slinging, noise pollution kidding. Calling up a new age to dodge on the sitting. Showing everything can be achieved if you want it. Do it every day, even when they say stop it. Take a funky beat in the street and drop it. But it's okay if you just wanna
Log it, y'all. Click, click, goes the mouse on the pad. Holy shit, says the mouse in the lab.
getting tested.
For people who invested, time and energy where they should
Really be arrested. Love of Mother Earth for the oil when we found it. Committing crimes on the soil all around it. We all getting sad when we're hearing all about it. But not getting mad so they think we allow it. Why I did it? Oh no. I like music.
So just explain a little bit as well about something else that I like doing. And that is, as you can hear, there's like a chord kind of here going on, which I loop. But sometimes I won't do a chord and I'll do this. Check this out. It's another technique that I developed. So that's not a chord, that's just loads and loads of delay. And if I sing different notes, it kind of sounds like a chord, but it's not. It's just all these, you know what I mean? That's all it really is. It's just like, it's like high pitch sound and it's the other bits and pieces. And then what I do, which I discovered, if I just put like if I put a bass line over this one, so I got that bass line, and then I realized if I chuck enough delay over my voice, but don't have, like, check this out. If I put this delay over, it's very confusing sounding because it's lots of me going blah, blah, blah over the top, right? But if I put a low pass filter over the delay, it sounds like this weird kind of keyboard sound in the background. So now look, now I've got the same delay, but it just sounds, it's underneath my voice. Oh, hear that? It's not the same as this, where I talk like this. That's really confusing. The same delay now with a low pass filter, it moves out of the way. You can hear everything I say. So now when I sing over the top, it sounds like there's a chord in the background. So that's, for example, I could do, yeah, hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more. I want you to say hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more. See how this sounds like there's chords, but there isn't. All it is just a bass line. If I just do this, that's all you're getting, right? And now this. And I know I wanna sing la la to you, and I'm going down. I feel the vibe coming all around. That's the way that we do what we do, and we do. And it gives the illusion that there's a keyboard there. So these are little techniques that I figured out while I was street performing. And there you go. There's a bit of dub effects vibes.
Wow.
Nice.
Thank you.
I really like the
You're welcome.
effects.
Anytime.
It's really cool. How you merge your voice with effects, and this experimental sound is also one of the things that inspired me a lot. And I use clarinet and saxophone mostly, and I had to figure out also how to do this kind of effects that you do with your voice, but me with the instrument.
Yeah, I mean, what it is, it's the technology inside the GT10B. So there's a couple of different pedals that I use. I've got the one that I'm using is on the floor right now, and you can't see it. But it looks like one of these. It's kind of like one of these really simple pedals, but it's silver. It's called an SYB pedal. This is a compressor, this one. And it's just a synth engine in the SYB. And what it does is, if I was to take off all the effects, I'll show you what it sounds like. If I take all the effects off, and so you just hear that synth sound, we'll turn all these off. And I'm literally just going, ooh, into the microphone. I just go, ooh, so check.
But then when I put the effects over it, in the pedal, it sounds like this. And I'm literally just going, what I'll do is I'll turn on my lapel mic. So
now you'll hear me. This is my microphone here. So check this out. When I make a bass line, it sounds like this. Oh, that's all I'm doing. I'm just going, oh. And it just sounds, I make it sound amazing, but it's actually just the effects inside the pedal, which is making it sound like it's something else, which, yeah, I don't know how it works, but it works.
Yeah, that's sweet. And Josep, how is this translated into LiveLoop? How can you work with effects there?
I mean, yeah, the whole thing of LiveLoop was built about that. I'm myself a clarinet player, and I wanted to take my clarinet, put effects on it, and make loops for it. And
have you got effects in LiveLoop, or is it just a loop station right now?
So you can open VSTs and Max for Live effects. So
right, okay.
So the first thing I did after programming LiveLoop, and I can actually show you now. Let me show you.
They cannot hear you, the music and the.
Yeah, sorry. So sorry, I will play again. So this is so I sent the clarinet to input 1, as I said before, and I developed this device. By the way, this device is free. It's a polyphonic harmonic generator. If anybody is interested into using it, send me an email to hello@liveloop.live and I will send away. So this basically plays octaves, thirds, and fifths. And what I wanted, I play clarinet, and I wanted to sound bigger. I always envy people who play like tenor saxophone or bass clarinet, because or the bigger sound. So I figured out like, okay, I can make the same thing with the clarinet. I can make it sound like a bass, as Ben said, and this was one of the turning points. And then I also like to put distortion. So then I can use this sound and make the loops. So then.
Sorry, Ben, we can't hear that, but the people at home are enjoying it.
That's great. No, I'll watch back afterwards.
Yeah, we can't comment on this. But I'm also curious to know from you, and this brings us to our big question of today, and that's what does the future of live looping look like? And maybe Ben, you can share some thoughts on where do you see this technique going?
Well, I think that, like, you know, it's crazy. It's a weird thing. Like, I think that every time people come along, they kind of bring their own stuff. Like I was saying before, for me, it was such an obvious route for me to go from using the effects over my voice. And I spent a lot of time figuring that out first, and then finding a loop station, seeing a loop station for the first time, and just plugging it together and writing and making songs. And I already had songs, and I put them into the loop station with all these effects. So to people who had never seen anything like that before, they thought I was a magician. They're like, that just blew their minds. But if they actually had followed my journey, it was all very obvious, and it just made sense the way everything just clicked and went from one thing to the other. But, you know, so like what you know, Joseph's doing to me blows my mind, because I didn't follow his journey. I think what happens is each artist who loops, they bring their own journey to the loop station. So they're always going to be blowing our minds. So I can't tell you what they're going to do. I can only tell you what I did, but I have no idea. Like, I see people use them all the time in ways, and I'm like, holy shit, you can do that. I didn't know you could do that. You know what I mean? So I think that it's up to the next generation to come along. I did my bit, and now it's up to the next, you know, generation to set the software and see where they can take it. I think, you know, at the end of the day, as long as people are pushing the boundaries musically, but also of the songwriting as well, you know, you have to be a good musician as well. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to be a loop artist and not know how to play an instrument. I mean, you know, I think the looping is sort of like the final part of the puzzle. You have to first figure out all the different tools that, you know, you have as an artist, whether it's singing, whether it's playing the clarinet or playing, you know, whatever it is. And once you've harnessed your skills as a musician, then you can take the loop station. That's why when you look at people like FKJ and Masego, for example, those guys are next level musicians. Like FKJ is a beast, you know what I mean? He can just do anything. So when he uses the loop station was the last piece of the puzzle that he probably started using. You know, he didn't just start using a loop station that, oh, I should learn how to play the piano. You know what I mean? He would have already known how to play the piano before he even thought about looping. And I think that's the key. The key is just working on your craft. And the loop station is something I think it's great for writing ideas, writing songs, and for pushing the boundaries of what a solo musician can do. But, you know, it's, you know, and I've done amazing sets where me and Woodnote, we both have our loop stations together. So it doesn't even have to be a solo thing. It cannot be, I've done gigs, in fact, where me, Astro, my trumpet player, was looping with his keyboard. Mr. Woodnote was looping with his saxophone. And Cade, my MC, was also looping with turntables. He actually had his turntables synced up to our loop station. We were all running MIDI. And everyone was plugged in. We were all looping our own bits, and, you know, get all synced together. And we would put these sets together. And I would just concentrate on drums and bass lines. And Astro would concentrate on chords and trumpets, like trumpet stacks and solos, and Mr. Woodnote would concentrate on the same thing. He had a piano and a saxophone he would concentrate on, and everyone did their own little bit. And it's all about putting those simple ideas that are tasty together, and that's what making a good song is all about. And so, yeah, I think the future is just good musicianship and using the loop station in ways. It doesn't even have to be groundbreaking the way you use the loop station. It's more about the energy that you put into your songwriting and your performance. That's really all that matters. And people don't give a shit about how technical your performance is. They care about whether your performance moved them, whether it was something that had soul, something that made them go, oh my God, I need to see that again. You know what I mean? But if it's just someone tinkering around with software, everyone's just going to stroke their beards and go, oh yeah, that was cool, but it's not going to leave an impression. So, the loop station is amazing as this looping software is, and it's great that there's nothing else. Well, it's not great that there's nothing else like that, but there is nothing else like this particular software, and it's great that it exists, and it means that people who are willing to take that software and then use it in their own way, that's the exciting part. So yeah, I think that made sense.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it comes down to identity, right? So these are just tools that you use, and artistically, what you choose to do with them, it's basically turned into your own signature. And
it's like the loop station is an extension of your personality. You know what I mean? It's like I used to think, I wish there was like 5 of me. It's super narcissistic, right? I wish there was 5 of me. I could play the drums and I could play the bass, and we could all be synced and we could all know what each other's thinking, and we could do the crazy jams. I used to have those thoughts like when I was like a teenager, thinking, oh, that'd be so much fun. And now I can do it, with the loop station, and that's what it's all about.
That's great. Giuseppe, do you have any thoughts to share on that, on why people would turn to live looping, and what does it have to offer artistically?
Yeah, I like so much what Ben said about now that there are a lot of possibilities, and each musician brings the live looping to the different level. So what I discovered, it was like there was no a really good flexible tool for live looping. And neither hardware, neither software. They're all the tools, they have a particular function. And what I think the future of live looping is be able to play any kind of for example, time signature or any kind of music genre that you wish, and the hardware or the software shouldn't be limiting you. It should offer the possibilities to do everything that the live looping musician wants to do. And I believe that live loop came here to stay, because this is the mission of live loop. Live loop is the software that allows to all kind of live looping musicians or all kind of musicians, basically. As Ben said, looping is just a standard technique. First, we need to be musicians. We first need to learn how to play the instrument, how to learn music, and then use, if you want to use live looping as a tool to perform your art, it's a great tool, and it's also a great tool to try new ideas. It's a great tool for studying. It's a great tool to improve your music skills.
Yeah.
So I do believe that the future of live looping is very exciting, and I'm also looking forward to hear more people using live loop, and I'm sure we are gonna have our minds blown by all the possibilities that we can offer, and the new generation will bring.
That's cool. Thank you so much. I was just looking to see if there's any questions for us, and I think we have a bit of time to answer. So for those looking now, if you're curious to know anything particular from Ben and Giuseppe, this is the moment to write your questions. And we already got one in from Todd Reynolds, and he's asking, can live loop function as an audio unit or VST and break out the separate Ableton live tracks?
Live loop is a standalone software, so it's not a VST, but you can load VSTs on it, and it can be synchronized with Ableton Link, and live loop also offers the possibility to each track send to a different channel. So you could send each loop to a different channel, and then if you want to use Ableton for to receive these channels, you can receive those channels from LiveLoop to Ableton. That is possible.
So that is almost like having a VST, really. There's not a lot of difference there. It's just because you're basically routing it to different channels like a VST would, and it's running seamlessly through Ableton Link. So it's basically the same thing. It's just not a VST instrument that you open in the normal way. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like this idea that I wanted. I envision the software as a DAW because I don't use Ableton myself, and when I started looping with software, I check it out, of course, first, but then I saw the workflow of Ableton is not really for live looping, it's for other things, and so the reason I started the development of live loop is to have the DAW for live looping performances. And also I also wanted to make it compatible for all the software. So as Ben said, you can synchronize it with Ableton, and you can also send the channel. So it's completely.
Yeah, the annoying thing about Ableton is it's not great for improvisation. You have to lock in a very specific order of how you're going to make your song in advance, and then do it exactly the same way every time, pretty much. That to me, it kind of like, you may as well have backing tracks, and that's because that's what Ableton is designed for. It's meant, Ableton Live was always designed as a backing track program for a band to play along to. You would have all your things in there, and that was how they originally came up with it, and then it became an amazing production software, which I still don't know how to use. I use Cubase. But yeah, it's not this LiveLoop is definitely better it's designed for the making shit up on the spot, basically. That's what it's all about.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Thank you for the vision.
Yeah, Giuseppe, someone saying that they are hearing two voices from you, so maybe you can check out. But what you said, Ben, I think that also answers the second question we got from someone who says that they use Ableton, but this sounds really interesting. So why do you think I should change to LiveLoop? So I think you just answer a big part of that question.
Yeah, I mean, Ableton's great for production and great for running backing tracks, but not when it comes to live improvising and live looping, basically. It's, and that's what and if you just put these two things together, you will have the best of both worlds, basically. Because, I use an Akai Force, which is basically Ableton Live in a box. That's what I use to run my backing tracks, and then my loop station is the RC505. But it would be great to be able to just have everything in software, and then just run it all like that. So yeah.
So I can help you with that. So whenever you feel to do the jump, we can contact, and I will make everything necessary for you to run LiveLoop on your computer.
I just need to get that controller sorted. Once this controller is built, then I'm there. I'm 100% there.
Cool.
Because it's not that controller yet that actually suits my specific workflow. Like, there are controllers that have the elements that I want, but like the faders are shit, or it doesn't have buttons in the right space. I need to have something that's designed. What I would love to see is for a developer, like an actual manufacturer like Akai or even Allen and Heath, to build sort of like to be a loop station, but it doubles as, so what would be sick is if it's like, you would need to have something that is an interface, so it's like so you can plug all your inputs in, outputs into it, and have the software for the interface. B, it needs to have mappable buttons and knobs and things so that you can decide, I want this to do this and I want that to do that. And then C, it also has to kind of almost be like a mixer, like the way, sort of like what the RC505 is, but mappable and with more inputs and with its own sort of interface, so that if you plug it into, a laptop or an iPad, boom, it's working, it's the interface, all your inputs go into it, and then you can just control. You can decide what you want to do on the software with it, and it should work seamlessly. No one's built that yet, and I'm trying to get that built, but I don't have any money to do that.
we could. I have ideas to build something like that also. We could brainstorm one day and see and get some funding for it.
Let's do it.
I'm sure there are a lot of people who also want this and would be willing to fund the project.
Well, let's hope there may be some developers watching us right now. So if you've heard this, please get in touch and help these two artists build their controller.
Totally, because there are actually some little mixers that you can it's like a mixer that you can plug like a normal mixer that you would plug all your instruments into, and they also connect with USB to your computer and they become an interface. The only thing is they're not mappable. So if you wanted to map effects to it, you need to have a separate controller to run the effects, but it would be amazing if it was just one unit, you know what I mean? Mappable knobs and buttons and interface and a mixer, that all in one unit, and that would destroy. There would be, no one would, you know, buy another loop station again, because they would just need to have this controller, and then they can run that software. They could run any software that even Cubase or Ableton, if they didn't want to do the looping. You know what I mean? That's my dream, is to build that. Yeah. So let's do it, man.
Yeah, let's do it.
Someone's actually following up on that and say, can I map those tracks in LiveLoop to hardware, right?
Yes, all the LiveLoop is mappable with any MIDI controller. So any MIDI controller you have, you can map any parameter of LiveLoop. Any button is mappable. Everything. Okay,
that's cool. Well, I think we've covered a lot today on live looping. That's great. Maybe as a future note, Ben, when can we see you live again, or what have you been up to these days? How can people follow you?
I'm so sick of this COVID shit, man. Trust me. I want to be out there. I've released an album at the beginning of the year, and I'm just releasing a new album right now. I was supposed to be doing that while touring for like 9 months this year. I think I had like 90 shows booked this year, and I did 10. And I actually just got a huge loan from the bank to buy a house, and I'm locked into that. So I'm just like freaking out. I need a tour. So if they say you can tour tomorrow, I will be there. But I'm just waiting to see. So I don't know. What I'm doing at the moment is I'm streaming every Wednesday and every Saturday. So you can go to my Facebook, DubFX is the Facebook, or you can go to my Twitch account as well. I stream to Twitch and Facebook, and that Twitch account is DubFX11, so twitch.tv/DubFX11, and I stream every Wednesday and Saturday. Here it's nighttime. Over in Europe, it's basically midday UTC time, and UTC time is 1 hour before GMT, so it's like 1 p.m. in the UK, 2 p.m. in the rest of Europe, every Wednesday, every Saturday. And I'm putting out new music all the time, and I think I'm booked for Germany in March 2021. If everything is fine, I'll be there.
That's cool. So let's follow you up online then, and let's hope that also we will be able to enjoy again one of your live show very, very soon. Giuseppe, if people want to try out LiveLoop, what's the options they have?
So they can visit our website, is www.liveloop.live, and go to try LiveLoop, and you can download a trial version and check it out. And if you have any question about the software, you can always send me an email, and we can set up a call where I can help you setting up the software. So any information you might need, just don't be shy and write us an email to hello@liveloop.live.
That's great. Well, thank you both again very much. For those at home, if you have any more questions, just write to us and we'll try to answer them via email. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you again for being here. I hope you enjoyed, and hope to see each other soon again live.
See you guys. Thank you so much for having me.